were the devil, if I were the prince of darkness, I'd want to engulf the whole world in darkness, and I'd have a third of its real estate and 4/5 of its population, but I wouldn't be happy until I had seized the ripest apple on the tree, thee. So I'd set about, however necessary, to take over the United States. I'd subvert the churches first. I'd begin with a campaign of whispers. With the wisdom of a servant, I would whisper to you as I whispered to Eve, do as you please. To the young, I would whisper that the Bible is a myth. I would convince them that man created God instead of the other way around. I would confide that what's bad is good and what's good is square. And the old I would teach to pray after me, Our Father, which art in Washington. And then I'd get organized. I'd educate authors in how to make lurid literature exciting so that anything else would appear dull and uninteresting. I'd threaten TV with dirtier movies and vice versa. I'd peddle narcotics to whom I could. I'd sell alcohol to ladies and gentlemen of distinction. I'd tranquilize the rest with pills. If I were the devil, I'd soon have families at war with themselves, churches at war with themselves, and nations at war with themselves, until each in its turn was consumed. And with promises of higher ratings, I'd have mesmerizing media fanning the flames. If I were the devil, I would encourage schools to refine young intellects, but neglect to discipline emotions. Just let those run wild, until before you knew it, you'd have to have drug-sniffing dogs and metal detectors at every schoolhouse door. Within a decade, I'd have prisons overflowing. I'd have judges promoting pornography. Soon I could evict God from the courthouse, then from the schoolhouse, and then from the houses of Congress. And in his own churches, I would substitute psychology for religion and deify science. I would lure priests and pastors into misusing boys and girls and church money. If I were the devil, I'd make the symbol of Easter an egg and the symbol of Christmas a bottle. If I were the devil, I'd take from those who have and give to those who want it, until I had killed the incentive of the ambitious. What'll you bet? I couldn't get whole states to promote gambling as the way to get rich. I would caution against extremes in hard work, in patriotism, in moral conduct. I would convince the young that marriage is old-fashioned, that swinging is more fun, that what you see on TV is the way to be. And thus I could undress you in public, and I could lure you into bed with diseases for which there is no cure. In other words, if I were the devil, I'd just keep right on doing what he's doing.
As usual, you were not expecting me. I'm sure you can recognize who I am, but if you don't, let me introduce myself. I am the one to rule and command the earth. Since the day of my refusal to kneel, I turned into the worst creature, became the enemy of God and his faithful servants. God promised me to enter hell on the day of judgment and to be held there for eternity. All this has happened because of you. I hate and envy you the same way I envied your father. Since you were born, I have been sinfully harming your life. I will not enter hell alone.
ومن يتبع Teaching Satanism in schools sounds like the stuff of horror movies, but a US court ruling on religious freedoms has enabled devil worshippers in Florida to hand out educational material about their beliefs to kids at state schools. Marina Portnaya has this report.
Public education in America often uses coloring books to teach young Americans about math, science, and current events. This year, a new book filled with games and lessons about Satanism could be distributed to students attending public school in Florida's Orange County. The 10-page Satanic Children's Big Book of Activities features characters named Annabelle and Damien who demonstrate rituals to explain Satanism. This expanding wealth of information in America's young minds was made possible after a Florida judge last month ruled that if the Orange County School District allowed Christian groups to disseminate Bibles and other materials in its schools, then other religious and atheist groups should be given the same right to distribute their material. And followers of the Antichrist seized on the decision to treat all faiths equally. A spokesman for the Satanic Temple tells Raw Story that, quote, if a public school board is going to allow religious pamphlets and full Bibles to be distributed to students, as is the case in Orange County, Florida, we think the responsible thing to do is to ensure that these students are given access to a variety of different religious opinions, as opposed to standing idly by while one religious voice dominates the discourse and delivers propaganda to youth, unquote. In a ruling that was aimed at maintaining religious neutrality, students who may never have intended to learn about Christianity, atheism, or Satanism will now receive an introduction to all three. Marina Portnaya, RT.
It has caused an uproar from the moment it was announced. A satanic statue slated to be unveiled in Detroit later this month.
But despite outrage from religious leaders, those plans are moving forward tonight. 7 Action News reporter Ross Jones is here now with this strange story.
Only word for it, strange. Good evening, ladies. Detroit has been through hell for all sorts of different reasons, from riots to bankruptcy. So maybe that's why one group says the Motor City is the perfect place to unveil a symbol of Satan.
Gather together to stand as one unified voice against this demonic spirit that is trying to invade our city.
If you'd been at the Greater New Mount Moriah Baptist Church this morning in Detroit, you might have wondered what in the devil they were talking about.
In this city, we will not allow it.
It is a 1-ton, 9-foot bronze statue of the satanic symbol Baphomet. And as you might expect, it's been having a hard time finding a home. It was erected by a group called the Satanic Temple, who originally planned to place it next to a monument of the 10 Commandments at Oklahoma's state capitol. But before it made its way there, the group planned a big unveiling here later this month. And that's what led 9 Detroit preachers to announce a counter-protest this morning. But according to their spokesperson, the group has strong membership ties here in the city. So on July 25th at Burt's Warehouse in Detroit, they planned the statue's big debut, with tickets starting at $25. VIP status runs 3 times that price and gets you a photo with the statue and a signed poster. But for the love of God, says the invite, please dress to impress.
This enemy that we're fighting is an invisible enemy, and it's going to take invisible weapons. The weapons of prayer, the weapons of fasting. Prayer and fasting, coming together as one, will drive the spirit out.
She says, I'm rebellious. Hail Satan. Well, don't worry. You're going to have judgment. The country's going to collapse. 53 million dead children. Everybody wants to say they're not human. The New World Order is going to say you're not human. The New World Order is going to take everything you've got. And when you beg for help, when you beg for mercy, no one's going to come.
I mean, I just turned on the TV. Wait till you see this. Look, just watch. Oh, look at this.
I have no idea what that means.
Yeah, I have no idea what that means. Me neither.
A group from New York's Satanic Temple made the trip to Meridian to protest the Westboro Baptist Church. You can see from pictures on their website there they performed a ritual they call Pink Mass on the grave of Katherine Johnston, the mother of Westboro founder Fred Phelps Jr. The ceremony involved two same-sex couples kissing over her grave. They then declared Katherine Johnston a lesbian in the afterlife.
It is an unusual crime. Not only does it violate a state and city ordinance, but it also violates the moral decency of a human being.
The Detroit Satanic Temple has unveiled its one-ton monument of Baphomet, replete with two children glaring up at its goat-headed insolence. The 9-foot-tall, $100,000-plus monument was slated to be unveiled at the Oklahoma State Capitol as a legal protest of separation of church and state. The Oklahoma State Capitol had been recently adorned with a Ten Commandments monument. However, a person hearing voices crashed into the Ten Commandments monument, causing a halt to the nefarious intention of the Satanic Temple. Satanic Temple spokesperson Lucian Greaves declared that the Baphomet statue would not be erected until the Ten Commandments statue is restored.
It's really encouraging. It's really moving, and we do get a lot of messages that start out with the caveat, you know, I am a Christian, however, and they explain they appreciate what we're doing.
But many say the statue goes against core Oklahoman beliefs.
Of having little kids around it, that's just ridiculous. I mean, I don't understand where they come from.
Our whole judicial system is based on the Ten Commandments. Whether you like it or not, it's our judicial system.
We have to let this play out however it plays out, but we'll keep pushing to make sure that it's going ahead.
Over the weekend, the Satanic Temple of Detroit held an unveiling event of the Baphomet statue that promised a night of noise, chaos, and debauchery. The location was not to be revealed until $25 ticket goers were informed of the location. VIP ticket holders would be given the opportunity to sit in the statue's lap for pictures. On Saturday night, the location was revealed to be on Joseph Campbell Avenue, one of the oldest areas in Detroit. But the temple doesn't intend on the statue remaining in Detroit. They are still intent on it being put up in Oklahoma, or in the words of Greaves, other battlegrounds in other states, with plans to erect a Ten Commandments or similar monument. Separation of church and state is one thing. Allowing the tenets of the liberty-destroying New World Order to thrive is quite another. Opening the door for this Illuminati parade of anti-morality and anti-ethical standards to be infused into common civics will most certainly accelerate a downward spiral. The spiral we are all experiencing as the architects of the New World Order close in on their endgame.
We are now facing a common challenge. And the challenge is how to build a world order for the first time in history on a global basis.
Our goal will be accomplished one drop at a time.
The more you people sin, the more I occupy your souls. And when you discover the truth that you became my slaves.
I follow you.
The transformation is coming.
The world will see who I am. I follow you into the darkness.
Numbers are growing.
We await the greatness that beckons.
There is gold at the end of this journey.
How do you drown out the noise?
There is no end.
Only new beginnings. Merlin was right to hide himself from us.
Still, I think
I think it may be too soon.
This world will be okay, won't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Again, I want to remind you, I was not a prophecy studier or expert at this time when this vision came to me. I began to walk the streets in shock at the current events. The events are difficult to describe because lawlessness and fear was permeating society completely. After about 2 weeks of time, television and radio began to be back up and running. However, it was completely different than what was previously being broadcast. The broadcasts were being bombarded nearly everywhere, and they were depicting a soon-to-come new government and leadership. A man would be emerging to lead us. The man finally came on the scene. Almost immediately, he began to communicate through large-screen televisions that were strategically placed everywhere the general populace met. Now, what was strange about this is that this man's speeches and directions for the whole world had to do with new times upon us as human beings, new directives for global peace, and the need to give up current citizenship for world citizenship. This man continually and constantly spoke of world order and the benefits of all men dwelling together in peace.
I haven't had what you call much of a formal education, but you can find most anything if you look hard enough.
Skateboarder, the coolest balloonist in town is Kool-Aid Man. He's appearing in his 6th Thanksgiving Day parade, which is very cool.
And he's actually got some pretty cool numbers to contemplate as well. He has 4 fingers, 3 ice cubes, and check it out, 6s for eyes and a nose.
Now listen to this, please, very carefully. At staggering rates, people were buying right into this plan that this man was releasing through the airwaves. At staggering rates. No resistance. No one was fighting it. No one was saying anything publicly. I will never forget this individual's face. His face was almost supernatural in appearance. He was almost too perfect. He was, for a lack of terms, he was the most handsome man I had ever seen. I was telling Stan that he had kind of a chiseled look to his face, and everything about his appearance was almost perfect. And when he spoke, there was just a very strange quality about him. The New Order was said to have all the answers to problems and the leadership necessary to bring the change, causing the world to finally become the envisioned globe of peace. This is what we heard over and over. Folks, this was 1980 when I had this dream.
I will show you what no one has ever seen from me. I will whisper and invite day and night. I will enter your soul through what you love most to make your evil self meaner, greedier, needier. I will feed your mind with evil and daunting thoughts to diminish your determination. It is I who will be victorious. It is I who will last.
Well, it's an event that's created a lot of buzz among local churches and Christian groups. The largest public satanic ceremony in history happening right here in Detroit.
It only took a moment and it was over, but in that moment, much changed. In a warehouse near the river in downtown Detroit, on the eve of the Feast of St. Anne, patroness of Detroit, a statue to the demon Baphomet was unveiled. The event was sponsored by the Satanic Temple and was described as the largest public satanic ceremony in history. Whether that claim is true or not, hundreds of people turned out for the event, first being directed by email to a decoy location, a deserted bank in a seedy Detroit neighborhood, where they were given driving instructions to the real location. That location was this warehouse near the Detroit River.
Within moments of the sheet coming off the statue, unsurprisingly, acts of sexual perversion and debauchery involving lesbians and gay men began on the statue.
All of this, of course, centers around sexuality and sensuality and the unbridled expression of each. There is much evidence on the part of participants of their support for sodomy and so-called free love. Many of the participants, including the actual leaders of the Satanic Temple, insist this demonic stuff is nothing but a symbolic way of expressing their desire to throw off the shackles of Catholicism's moral yoke, the other of one diametrically opposed.
At least 100 people eagerly waiting for what's been kept well under wraps.
It said dress like an animal or wear horns and tails.
Some drove in from as far as upstate New York to see the Satanic Temple unveil a 9-foot-tall bronze statue of a goat-headed Satan.
It just seemed like it would be a historic event.
The guests came dressed to impress. Each paid at least $25 for a ticket. Security inside was tight. No cameras or media allowed in. No cell phones and photographs allowed. The secretive nature of the event didn't prevent a few protesters from attending.
Based on religious freedom, and tonight in what the temple is doing, this is a celebration of true religious freedom.
If I were the devil, if I were the prince of darkness, I'd want to engulf the whole world in darkness, and I'd have a third of its real estate and 4/5 of its population, but I wouldn't be happy until I had seized the ripest apple on the tree. So I'd set about, however necessary, to take over the United States. I'd subvert the churches first. I'd begin with a campaign of whispers. With the wisdom of a serpent, I would whisper to you as I whispered to Eve, do as you please. To the young, I would whisper that the Bible is a myth. I would convince them that man created God instead of the other way around. I would confide that what's bad is good and what's good is square. And the old I would teach to pray after me, Our Father, which art in Washington. And then I'd get organized. I'd educate authors in how to make lurid literature exciting so that anything else would appear dull and uninteresting. I'd threaten TV with dirtier movies and vice versa. I'd peddle narcotics to whom I could. I'd sell alcohol to ladies and gentlemen of distinction. I'd tranquilize the rest with pills. If I were the devil, I'd soon have families at war with themselves, churches at war with themselves, and nations at war with themselves, until each in its turn was consumed. And with promises of higher ratings, I'd have mesmerizing media fanning the flames. If I were the devil, I would encourage schools to refine young intellects, but neglect to discipline emotions. Just let those run wild. Until before you knew it, you'd have to have drug-sniffing dogs and metal detectors at every schoolhouse door. Within a decade, I'd have prisons overflowing. I'd have judges promoting pornography. Soon I could evict God from the courthouse, then from the schoolhouse, and then from the houses of Congress. And in his own churches, I would substitute psychology for religion and deify science. I would lure priests and pastors into misusing boys and girls and church money. If I were the devil, I'd make the symbol of Easter an egg and the symbol of Christmas a bottle. If I were the devil, I'd take from those who have and give to those who wanted until I had killed the incentive of the ambitious. And what'll you bet? I couldn't get whole states to promote gambling as the way to get rich. I would caution against extremes in hard work, in patriotism, in moral conduct. I would convince the young that marriage is old-fashioned, that swinging is more fun, that what you see on TV is the way to be. And thus I could undress you in public, and I could lure you into bed with diseases for which there is no cure. In other words, if I were the devil, I'd just keep right on doing what he's doing.